I don't care what they say about that story. I know what I've fucking well heard there, and it wasn't that. Look out the window, but I can't see the sky. The air pollution is a fucking up my eyes. I want to get out of this city alive and make like an ape man.
Hey, everybody out there. Welcome back to another episode of the Audiophiles. I'm Andy, that's John over there, and it's going to be time to dig into some music. John is going to offer me up an artist and a tune to go off and check out. Then we're going to come back. I'm going to give my thoughts in detail, and John is going to kind of give me some background information and school me a bit. John, what are we working with today, my friend?
Okay, well, as you know, we have spoken off camera about sort of many bands, and there's a one that's come up a couple of times, and I thought, let's take a flyer and see if you know this tune or not. Very English band who've influenced so many, and that is a band you definitely heard of, the Kinks.
Okay, all right, yeah. With that preface, there was only a couple options we had. Sort of a similar conversation that we had about Bowie too. When we were going into that, where it's like I know some of his stuff, but I don't know everything. You surely do, or close to it. So yeah, it's probably a similar kind of dynamic here. I know a few of the Kinks songs. They obviously were quite popular over here, and but I can tell you that I haven't heard everything. So what is the
Hmm.
track that you're interested in having me check out today?
It's an interesting one. Ape Man.
Yeah, Apeman. The name like that, it would definitely ring a bell or wave a flag if I had heard before. I'm pretty sure I haven't heard Apeman. So, well, this will be cool because I've liked what I've heard from the Kinks. They've got that, I don't know, they've got a very accessible sound to them. Obviously, right? Big pop hits that, have transcended continents. So, yeah, cool. I'll give Apeman a listen and come back and let you know what I think.
I think I'm sophisticated cause I'm living my life like a good homo sapien. But all around me everybody's multiplying and they're walking around like flies, man. So I'm no better than the animals sitting in their cages in the zoo, man. Cause compared to the flowers and the birds and the trees, I am an ape man. I think I'm so educated and I'm so civilized cause I'm a strict vegetarian. But with the overpopulation and inflation and starvation.
Yeah, I love the way the bass just dropped in for that second verse. It was kind of like musically a bit more scant in the first verse, and then as a way to shoot life into the track, they add that bass into the next go round of the verse. Yeah, at first I'm like, why the hell are we starting off with the sounds of, urban traffic and like, this commuter's hellscape? But as the lyrics started to unfold in the verse, it gave me an idea of like, okay, these are the kind of sounds you hear when these intrusive thoughts of wanting to escape it and how we got here as a culture and civilization start to, creep into your psyche. So it makes sense. And now it kind of makes me smile, along with just some of the general lyrics as well that followed. So yeah, so far so good. This is thus far smile inducing, and I've gotten a bit of a chuckle too, so I think we're in for a fun track.
And the birds and the trees, I am an ape man. I think I'm so educated and I'm so civilized cause I'm a strict vegetarian. But with the overpopulation and inflation and starvation and the crazy politicians, I don't feel safe in this world no more. I don't wanna die in a nuclear war. I wanna sail away to a distant shore and make like an ape man. I'm an
Ooh.
ape man.
That grand piano sound.
I'm a King Kong man, I'm a voodoo man, no, I'm an Apeman. 'Cause compared to the sun that sits in the sky, compared to the clouds that say roll by, compared to the bugs and the spiders and flies, I am an Apeman. La, 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 la. In man's evolution, he's created the city and the motor traffic rumble. But give me half a chance and I'll be taking off my clothes and living in the jungle. 'Cause the only time that I feel at ease is swinging up and down in a coconut tree. Oh, what a life of luxury to be like an ape man.
What a quirky little portion that was.
Man, I'm an ape man, oh, I'm an ape man.
It's during this part that I'm most reminded of Lola, if I'm being completely honest with you. I know it's not the same, but there's just, for some reason, there's shades, in my mind, there are shades of similarities, between the two tracks. And yeah, it's definitely where I hear it the most. Also, that little, like, spoken word bit was very interesting. And, which is perfectly in line with the rest of the track. It's making me laugh and making me smile. And I like the humor that they're coming at this subject matter with.
I'm a King Kong man, I'm a voodoo man, no, I'm an ape man. I look out the window, but I can't see the sky. The air pollution is a fucking up my eyes. I wanna get out of this city alive and make like an ape man.
Shaker.
Come on and love me, be my ape man girl, and we be so happy in my ape man world.
That's like, I don't know if that's a grand piano, but it sounds about as grand piano as it gets with that dun, 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 like the pounding of those keys. And there are other keys that don't sound very grand piano-y as well. So I don't know if there's two different kinds of pianos or a keyboard piano that's being used, sort of that dynamic between the two, but it's two very different sounds. But I love it. I also love how like the piano and the drums are acting as these little bits of like connective tissue between the different portions throughout the song. It's fun, easy, accessible little ways to segue between portions. Like this key bit sounds different.
I'll be your Tarzan, you'll be my Jane. I'll keep you warm and you'll keep me sane. We'll sit in the trees and eat bananas all day, just like an ape man. I'm an ape man, I'm an ape man, no, I'm an ape man. I'm a King Kong man, I'm a voodoo man, no, I'm an ape man. I don't feel safe in this world no more. I don't wanna die in a nuclear war. I wanna sail away to a distant shore, make like an ape man. La, 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 la.
Oh. Well, that's a wrap. Yeah, that was fun and funny, and catchy as all hell. Yeah, the keys thing that I was talking about a moment ago, it like there were times where it sounded very, very much like a grand piano, but there's also this other set of keys that sounds almost like old-timey saloon meets vaudeville camp. And it kind of has that kind of sound to it, which it fits this perfectly. Yeah, and is it Davies? Is that the Ray Davies, the singer of the Kinks? His voice was a lot of fun in this, and his lyricism was a lot of fun. I mean, again, that spoken word bit in the middle, where it almost sounded like he was teaching a lesson, was very, very fun and amusing as well. Yeah, we've talked. I mean, the subject matter of this song we've heard expressed in much more stark and serious and dire ways in other songs. Sort of this, you know, where modern civilization has ended up and the issues taken with that by the narrator or the songwriters. And this is it underscores the same sentiment, but it comes at it in a completely different angle, which is like much more like fun and not that they don't believe what they're saying, but they're trying to have fun with it. It's like that question of like, it's so bad, do you laugh or do you cry? And in some cases, writers come at the angle of the crier, and sometimes, in this case, for instance, they're coming at it from the laugh angle. So I appreciate that. Definitely it didn't take long for me to be like, "Yup, this is definitely the band that wrote Lola," because there are similarities in just their sound, and bands have that, right? You can pop on certain bands and get 5 seconds of it, and you know exactly who you're listening to. I'm not going to say it was that short of a period of time, but I feel like if by the time I got to the chorus without knowing, I would have guessed that this was the Kinks because it has that sound. It has their sound. Yeah, this was a lot of fun. I'll be interested to learn more about the track and the album and maybe the inspiration thereof for both items there. But I enjoyed this one. Let's get back to John and chuckle some more and learn a bit more about this track and maybe some stuff about the Kinks that I hadn't known.
Bernard Matthews, Turkey Twizzler, he's back. So, I listened to Apeman by the Kinks. What do you think?
Sorry. Turkey Twizzlers are some sort of snack food over there. Is that right?
Okay, how to put this? So, really cheap, nasty, frozen food. A sort of turkey meat that's pulped into shapes and then coated with some sort of breadcrumby
God.
type shit, and then whacked in the oven for 20 minutes and given to the kids to stop them from screaming. That's what turkey twisters are.
First of
And
all,
they are beautiful, as they say in the advert.
they remind me of like our dino nuggets, which are just processed chicken meat in the shape of
Exactly.
dinosaurs with yeah. Also, turkey twizzler, wholly unappetizing sounding name. Like I couldn't think of anything I'd rather not eat than a turkey twizzler. That's neither
It's better
here nor
than calling
there.
it. It's better than calling it beaks and arseholes, which is what it is.
You're right. Yeah. Like hot dog.
Yeah.
Not that appetizing, but when compared to what's actually in it, you'd probably rather eat a hot dog. Yeah, okay, so let's get back to the Kinks here and off turkey twizzlers. Uh so yeah, this is a lot of fun, obviously, right? I mean, the whole song was written with tongue like firmly in cheek. And I appreciated that because we've had so many examples of this kind of stuff that takes a much headier, darker, more serious approach to expressing the kind of sentiment at baseline as what's being expressed here. This is just done from a more fun way, which makes me think of the adage like, "It's so bad you either laugh or you cry." And those songs, the former songs I described, are a bit more from the crier standpoint, and this is much more from the laugher standpoint. So it begins, and I'm already, and I think it's starting in this can, transported to commuter's hell. The bustling sounds of busy, crowded traffic underscored by revving engines and honking horns. I'm already having flashbacks to all my times on the Beltway out here in the Baltimore D.C. area. So I am, uh, re- uh, as soon as the PTSD subsides, um, the music this music the soundscape is replaced by like punchy tones of almost ragtime like keys cutting through the soundscape, which are soon joined by brief, vibrant strums. And then this gives way to a few raps on the drums and then some pretty notation as the beat drops. And the acoustic in this almost, I think it's the acoustic or it's the acoustic coupled with that old timey piano, kind of has almost a banjo-y type effect or tone to it, which I thought was really interesting. Um, and as the song takes form, I notice it has like a playful sound to it, which is complemented or accent by the light, sort of buoyant movement of the track. And by this point, Ray Davies is delivering the first verse and postulates that he thinks he's sophisticated because he's living life like a good Homo sapien. But he also can't help but notice that his peers are overpopulating like flies. And so that makes him no better than the animals on display at the zoo. And that in comparison to, I don't know, I think he said flowers and spiders and something like that, he's no better than an ape, man. Which was interesting because at that point I was like, is he saying ape man, like an ape man, or like an ape man? But I guess the song progressed, like I got it, it was ape man. In the next verse, he continues, and this is cool too because the first verse is this classic thing that we've discussed in the past, where it's like, how do we give the song like a longer shelf life or enough diversity musically to keep things interesting? So the first verse was a bit more musically scant. The second verse, that bass rolls in and it has this full down to it.
It's a lovely entrance to the bass, isn't it? It just comes in.
Yeah, it's
really
great.
nice.
It's great. And there's a lot of that in this song actually that I'll touch on in a bit, where like as the parts transition, there are these like bits of connective tissue, musical connective tissue that kind of bridge the gap. Classic trope, tried and true, classic method, I should say, tried and true, but when it works, it fucking works, and it sounded really good here throughout this song. So this next fuller verse musically continues to take the piss, well, out of himself, thinking he's so educated and sophisticated because he's a strict vegetarian. That made me laugh. I know a few of those people who behave and think like that. However, this isn't enough to stave off the fear of dying in a nuclear war and feeling unsafe because of overpopulation, inflation, and starving. I don't know. He rattled these lines off pretty quickly, but I'm thinking what makes sense here and what I think I hear: overpopulation, inflation, starvation, and of course, the common denominator to all of this, crazy politicians. So all of this leads to him to wish he could sail off to some distant shore and live life like an ape man. The second verse gives way to the first chorus, and I have to say, here is where I most noticed the similarities to Lola. Not the same music, not the same song, but goddamn, this is a classic example of pop on a band, listen to them for a few seconds, and you'll instantly be reminded of their biggest hit or the song the sound that you were introduced to them by. And this is like that. Like I just heard it. I don't know if it was the time signature or like the melody or what it was, but there was something there that shouted, "These are the guys that fucking wrote Lola," which is great. That's comforting to me. It's a warm blanket. So, lyrically, the chorus continues to flex the song's silly muscle with declarations of "I'm an ape man, I'm an ape man" over the top of this rollicking piano and bright strums of the guitar. Davies also calls himself a King Kong man and a voodoo man, uh, which only adds to the comedic value of the track. I will admit there are some lovely bits of piano flourishes and drum fills in this track, and this is what I was alluding to earlier. That bass intro to the second verse notwithstanding, these are the bits of musical connective tissue that bridge one portion of a song to the next, and it becomes comforting, and though it becomes expected, that doesn't mean it becomes so routine that it's boring. It's like something you look forward to. The keys on this portion, I'm inclined to think that there's definitely two sets of keyboard based instruments in this song. One of them has this electric keyboardy, maybe electric piano sound. The other has this grand piano sound because when these transitions hit, they hit like a grand piano. You feel the depth and resonance of those key strikes. So that's the vibe I got off this, and that's what led me to think, because there's no way that ragtimey type shit is coming from a grand piano. I can't imagine. So love these little bits of connective tissue, as I said. This post chorus bit is also a lot of fun, with Davies delivering the lyrics in an almost animated spoken word motif. It's almost like he's giving a lesson as he discusses man's evolution and achievements like city planning and motorized transportation. But those achievements only seem to act as his impetus for wanting to leave this world behind to live in a jungle. And I gotta say, the oh my God. The why is the name escaping me? The Sugar Cubes song that we listened to recently, that has Bjork and
This,
the
yeah,
what yeah, Deus.
and Ina,
What's the guy's name?
Ina.
Heine. Davies reminded me of Heine in the spoken word part, but far more discernible and a little less afflicted by an accent that I'm not accustomed to. But the tone of it was kind of silly and just for some reason I had
Once
flashbacks.
met him.
Yeah,
He wasn't white and fluffy. He had sideburns and a quiff. Yeah.
that same tone, but about shit that made more sense to me in this instance. So
Fair enough.
that was also just made me chuckle a little bit. So we get treated to two more courses after this bit, but sandwiched between both of them is this brief quasi bridge portion, where Davies is now inviting a partner to join, like a female accomplice to join him on this excursion off to 8 Man Island. So and at some point he's talking about banging goddamn coconuts and stuff like that. Quite silly. So the piano in the subsequent chorus is terrific during this portion and has just enough shades of both, again, that old-timey saloon slash vaudeville camp to it, that it's hard not to find yourself smiling and nodding along to the melody. Davies then signs off with a few la la la's. And there's a little bit of musical work after that that kind of mimics the pattern of the la la la's, and then it comes to an end. So yeah, this is a lot of fun. It made me smile. It made me laugh. And the melody and the movement of the song were infectious. These guys know how to write a poppy in the sense that it is an earworm, a poppy hit that will get stuck in your head, with their melodies and their just the structure of the song itself. So not something that was like, whoa, this is the most earth-shattering shit I've ever listened to, but a song doesn't need to be that for me to enjoy it. And I thoroughly enjoyed this one. So yeah, again, it took a more lighter approach to a subject matter that we've seen so often through the lens of like heaviness and, seriousness. So that was a nice little change of pace. So yeah, I appreciated that about the song. It was a good time. But tell me a bit more about this track, my fellow ape man.
Okay. Thank you for that. I will say, I'll get into it in a second. As in the Kinks, probably sounds a bit silly saying this, but I think they're very underrated. I think we had this discussion a few weeks back off camera, just saying I would put the Kinks in terms of British bands. The Beatles is head and shoulders above anyone else and what they achieved musically. And then you got the first tier, and the Kinks are definitely in that. And it's hard to compare different eras because they do different things. They have different access, different to the market, whatever. Bit like Radiohead, Pink Floyd, people like that. And then I'd put their contemporaries like the Who and the Rolling Stones on the next tier down. I'd definitely put the Kinks way above them. But anyway, I fucking love this song. And it's just purely the melody. And you're right. It's something about particularly that chorus and the piano work that does remind me a little bit of Lola. They're more like companion pieces rather than Ugly Sisters. But but they're there. I know the same album as well, so it kind of all ticks boxes and makes sense.
That makes sense.
And yeah, wonderful. I once in a pub in God, where was it? In North London. I had some time to kill with my mate, and I put Lola on the jukebox 12 times in a row just because I was enjoying it that much. And the locals, I have to say, were delighted with me. They really were. Anyway, let's get into it. So the Kinks were an English rock band formed in London in 1963 by brothers Ray and Dave Davies and Peter Quaife. They all met at William Grimshaw School in Muswell Hill, which is in the Haringey borough of North London. And initially they were the Ray Davies Quartet. The band went through a series of lead vocalists while they're still at school, this is, including a certain Mr. Rod Stewart, who's also a student at the same school. He played with them very briefly, and then he went on to form his own group, Rod Stewart and the Moonrakers, and they became a local rival band to the Ray Davies Quartet. Brilliant. So the band went through a number of names: the Ramrods, the Pete Quaife Band, the Bow Weevils, and the Ravens. before settling on the Kinks. And their breakthrough came with a single, You Really Got Me, in 1964, which I think was their third single. Now, there's a lot about the Kinks, imagine, so I'm just going to break it down to little interesting snippets here and there. We might do some more Kinks, and I'll give you more details, because there's plenty to go at.
Can I just say really quickly that the Boll Weevils was the Turkey Twizzlers of that lot of names right there. I'm glad they moved on from it, because that wasn't a keeper for sure.
Exactly. So they were seen as part of the British invasion in the US when the bands were sort of coming over in the mid-60s. Unfortunately, their access was effectively cut off by the American Federation of Musicians after a tour of the US in 1965. Following that, the Kinks were refused permits to appear in the US and perform for the next 4 years, which basically really hampered their progress. It was reported that there was no official reason given. It was reported that the ban was sparked by an incident which happened when the band were taping Dick Clark's TV show Where the Action Is in 1965. Ray Davies recalls in his autobiography, some guy who said he worked for the TV company walked up and accused us of being late. Then he started making anti-British comments such as, just because the Beatles did it, every mop-top, spotty-faced, limey juvenile thinks he can come over here and make a career for himself. Subsequently, a punch was thrown and the FM banned them. This is not an uncommon occurrence within the life of the Kinks. Anyway, so the band, led mainly by Ray Davies's writing, moved from this sort of really popular hit after hit after hit into a more sort of eccentric Baroque pop and musical influenced styles with albums such as Something Else. The Kinks are the Village Green Preservation Society and Arthur, or The Decline and Fall of the British Empire. They're all still banging out the hits though. Stuff like Waterloo Sunset and things like that, huge hits. In 1970, they released the album Lola versus Power Man and the Money Go Round Part 1. There is no Part 2. The lineup at this stage was Ray Davies, lead vocal guitar, Dave Davies, backing vocal, acoustic and electric guitars, John Dalton, bass guitar. So the founder, Pete Quaife, left permanently. He left in 66 for a while after a car crash, came back and then left permanently in 69. Mick Avery, drums, and John Goslin, baby grand piano and electric piano, which I think was probably a Rhodes, like you said. So this was another concept album. They started doing concept albums, so 2 or 3 albums before. And it's a satirical appraisal of the music industry, including some publishers, unions, the press, accountants, business managers, and life on the road as well. It contained the huge hit Lola and is seen by a lot of critics as one of their best albums. There's debate, I love this album. I think it's absolutely fantastic. Apeman was the second single from the album, and it reached number 5 in the British charts. Lola reached number 2. And has since attracted critical acclaim. Despite the success of the singles, the album failed to chart in the UK. Davies wrote the song as a follow-up to Lola and confirmed that, in a way, it was his declaration of getting back in touch with nature. He also recounted an encounter with a fan in San Francisco about the band's gay appeal following Lola. Oddly enough, he says, I already made Apeman as a follow-up to Lola, and it was just ready to come out when I met a fan in San Francisco who said, "You've got to make a record after Lola, or they'll all think you're gay or something. You've got to make a record like Superman or Gorilla Man." And I said, "That's really strange. My new record is called Apeman. But if I deliberately set out to do that, it'd probably come off looking even more of a queen." It's performed in the calypso genre, a style that Davies first explored with a song called I'm on an Island in 1965. And interestingly, in terms of crossover music and some of their influences, you might find this interesting. At a stopover in Bombay, India, during the band's Australian and Asia tour, Davies led him to write a song called See My Friends, which was released as a single in July 1965. This was an early example of crossover music and one of the first pop songs of the period to display a direct influence of traditional music from the Indian subcontinent. Davies had written the song with a raga feel after hearing the early morning chants of the local fishermen. Music historian Jonathan Bellman argues the song was extremely influential on Ray Davies's musical peers, And he says, and while much has been made of the Beatles' Norwegian Wood, because it was the first pop record to use a sitar, it was recorded well after the Kinks' Clearly Indian See My Friends was released, about 5 months afterwards. In a widely quoted statement by Barry Fantoni, what a name, himself a 1960s celebrity and friend of the Kinks, the Beatles, and the Who, he recalled it was also an influence on the Beatles. I remember it vividly, he said, and still think it's a remarkable pop song. I was with the Beatles the evening they actually sat around listening to it on the gramophone and saying, you know, this guitar thing sounds like a sitar. We must get one of those.
Wow.
Interesting.
That's incredible.
Yeah. The song Apeman had some controversy because in one of the lines it says the air pollution is a fogging at my eyes, and the word a fogging sounded too much like a fucking. So, like the band's previous single Lola, where Ray Davies had to change Coca-Cola to Cherry Cola, he once again had to fly back to London to re-record that single line, dubbing over a more clear a fogging prior to its single release, in turn causing a delay in the US single release because of the tune. The original lyric still remains intact in the album, and that's what you heard. I don't care what they say about that story. I know what I've fucking well heard there, and it wasn't that. Anyway, let's get on with the lyrics. I think I'm sophisticated because I'm living my life like a good Homo sapien. But all around me, everybody's multiplying and they're walking around like flies, man. So I'm no better than an animal sitting in the cages at the zoo, man. Because compared to the flowers and the birds and the trees, I am an ape man. I think I'm so educated and I'm so civilized because I'm a strict vegetarian. But with the overpopulation and inflation and starvation and the crazy politicians, I don't feel safe in this world no more. I don't want to die in a nuclear war. I want to sail away to a distant shore and make like an ape man. I'm an ape man. I'm an ape man. Oh, I'm an ape man. I'm a King Kong man. I'm a voodoo man. Oh, I'm an ape man. Because compared to the sun that sits in the sky, compared to the clouds as they roll by, compared to the bugs and the spiders and the flies, I am an ape man. La 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 la. In man's evolution, he's created the city and the motor traffic rumble. But give me half the chance, and I'll be taking off my clothes and living in the jungle. Because the only time that I feel at ease is swinging up and down in a coconut tree. Oh, what a life for luxury to be like an ape man. I'm an ape man. I'm an ape man. I'm an ape man. I'm a King Kong man within about an ape man. Look out the window, but I can't see the sky. The air pollution is a fucking up my eyes. I want to get out of this city alive and make like an ape man. La 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 la. Oh, come on and love me. Be my ape man girl. And we'd be so happy in my ape man world. I'm an ape man. I'm an ape man. I'm an ape man. I'm a King Kong man. I'm a video man. I'm an ape man. I'll be your Tarzan. You'll be my Jane. I'll keep you warm and you'll keep me sane. We'll sit in the trees and eat bananas all day, just like an ape man. I'm an ape man. I'm an ape man. Oh, I'm an ape man. I'm a King Kong man. I'm a video man. I'm an ape man. I don't feel safe in this world no more. I don't want to die in a nuclear war. I want to sail away to a distant shore and make like an ape man. La 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 la. So there you go. I will say it's really interesting because sentiment is heartfelt. The way he's doing it and deliver it is piss taking. It's that sort of hippie piss take thing. So it's a sort of dual thing that he means it, but it doesn't mean it, but it does mean it. It's really nice. It's full of very sort of dry English humor as well. After the success of Lola and this album, the band then released Percy in 1971, which is a soundtrack album to the film of the same name about a penis transplant. The album, which
I'm glad I held off on taking a sip there, man. I was waiting. Oh my god, Jesus!
Yeah,
What inspiration?
It was mainly largely instrumentals. It did not receive positive reviews. In fact, the band's US label Reprise declined to release it in the US. Following it, finally was released in the UK, and then both the American distributor Reprise and Pi in UK both ended their contracts with the Kinks. But based on like the huge singles, they then signed, I think, is it RCA? Huge deal anyway. So you know. But just to be about their influence, so the Kinks did pioneer the modern rock sound a very famous story, but I think it's worth quoting here. Dave Davis was really bored with his guitar sound or lack of an interesting sound. So he purchased a little green amplifier, an Elpico, from a radio spare shop in Muswell Hill, and twiddled around with it, including taking the wires, going to the speaker and putting a jack plug on there and plugging it straight into my AC30, which is a larger amplifier. But didn't get the sound he wanted until he got frustrated and got a single-sided Gillette razor blade and cut around the cone from the center to the edge. So it was all shredded, but it was still on there, still together in one piece. I played and thought it was amazing. Jagged sound the amplifier was replicated in the studio. The Apico was plugged into the Vox AC30, and the resulting effect became a mainstay in the Kinks' early recordings, most likely on You Really Got Me and All Day and All Night. So kind of invented distorted guitars, which is a huge part of the sound we all listen to today.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then we have the other sort of side of the band, these Warring Brothers, which are quite famous nowadays, but they performed and toured relentlessly through 1965. Tensions began to emerge within the band as displayed on the onstage fight between drummer Mick Avery and Dave Davies at the Capitol Theatre in Cardiff, Wales on the 19th of May, 1965. After finishing the song You've Really Got Me, Davies insulted Avery and kicked over his drum set. Avery responded by hitting Davies with his hi-hat stand, rendering him unconscious, before fleeing the scene, fearing that he had killed his bandmate. Davis was taken to Cardiff Royal Infirmary, where he received 16 stitches to his head. To placate the police, Avery later claimed that it was all part of a new act in which band members would hurl their instruments at each other. So, and that just went on all the time, all sorts of weird stuff, and the brothers were always fine as well. The Kinks, just to summarise, were active from 1963 to 1996. They released 26 studio albums and 4 live albums, and there have been between, and it's still not confirmed how many, but between 100 and 200 compilation albums have been released worldwide of their material. The hits included 3 UK number 1 singles, 17 top 20 singles, and 5 top 10 albums. The Kinks had 5 top 10 singles in the US Billboard chart, and none of their albums were in the top 40. The band's profile really rose considerably in the mid-90s due to the result of the Britpop and all the sort of bands citing their Kinks as a major reference. They are regarded as one of the most influential rock acts of the 60s and early 70s. They're ranked 65th in Rolling Stones magazine's 100 greatest artists of all time. Artists influenced by the Kinks include groups such as the Ramones, the Clash, Blondie, the Jam, heavy metal bands such as Van Halen, and Britpop bands such as Oasis and Blur. Pete Townsend credited Ray Davies inventing a new kind of poetry and a new kind of language for pop writing that influenced me from the very, very, very beginning. John Savage wrote that the Kinks were an influence on late 1960s American psychedelic rock groups like The Doors, Love, and Jefferson Airplane. Music writers and other musicians have acknowledged the influence of the Kinks on the development of hard rock and heavy metal. Musicologist Joe Harrington stated, "You Really Got Me, All Day and All Night, and I Need You were predecessors of the whole 3-chord genre." Yeah. The Kinks did a lot to help turn rock and roll, like Jerry Lee Lewis, into rock. And Queen guitarist Brian May credited the band with planting the seed which grew into riff-based music. So they gave their last public performance in 1996. And then they assembled for the last time. It turned out to be for Dave Davis's 50th birthday. They had a party above the pub where they first played, the Clissold Arms pub in North London. Oh. There has been for nearly 30 years rumours of new work and the Davis brothers getting back together, but nothing has ever come of it. So there you go. That's the Kinks. I will awesome. Wrap things up. Thanks for listening, Sandy. Folks out there, tell us what you think. If you like this, please do hit the like button and drop some comments about this track, this album, the Kinks in general, whatever. We'd love to hear from you. If you haven't subscribed, please do. We really appreciate everybody who does support the channel, so up on board. That being said, thanks again so much for watching, and we'll see all of you on the next episode of The Audiophiles.
See you later, guys.